गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करेंगे इंडिया नेपाल रिलेशंस एंड ऑल अबाउट ब्रिजिंग बॉर्डर्स। एंड ब्रिजिंग बॉर्डर्स इज अ बुक written by my good old friend Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan. And before he tells us anything about Nepal, first let's welcome him to Gunner Shot. Good evening, Shokin. Welcome to Gunner Shot, and a hearty congratulations from all of you for this wonderful book. I think it was well timed and greatly needed.
थैंक यू सर, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपने मेरे को ये शो में बुलाया। आई एम ऑनर्ड इंडीड, बहुत इंडीड ऑनर्ड सर बाय योर कंटिन्यूस मैग्नानिमिटी। आई नो वी स्पोकन अ ग्रेट डील। इससे पहले हम नॉर्थ ईस्ट के बारे में बहुत बात करते थे, चर्चा करते थे, नेपाल के बारे में, यूक्रेन के बारे में। पर ये जो हमारा जो रिलेशनशिप है हमारे क्लोजेस्ट देश के साथ, नेपाल एक्चुअली हमारा क्लोजेस्ट देश है, और उसके साथ हम क्यों हमारा रिलेशनशिप ठीक नहीं है, और ये इट्स अ वेरी वरिंग टॉपिक कि हम क्यों नहीं with the countries that are closest to us geographically, why aren't we on good terms with them? So this was one issue, sir, that has always been in my mind. As you know, I am from the Gurkha Rifles. I was born in the Gurkha Rifles, and I have known the Gurkhas, Nepalis, for all my life. And it has been one continuous love affair with Nepal and its soldiers. And because I had this experience of being the India's defense attaché in Nepal, that I realized कि why are we not doing the right things with Nepal? हम क्यों इस दोस्ती को we are just throwing it in the winds? And I decided that I would first do my research. मैंने इसी सब्जेक्ट पे अपनी PhD करी सर, और फिर मैंने विचार करा कि this now needs a wider audience. So I rewrote my PhD into this book, Bridging Borders. I am grateful that I have got this opportunity and the ability to have brought it to the people, something that I have loved and something I feel very strongly about, कि हम क्यों अपने इस closest country के साथ हम ये दोस्ती नहीं बना सकते।
Yeah, I think you said it all. हम क्यों नई दोस्ती बना सकते हैं हमारा सबसे नजदीक नेबर के साथ, और वो भी एक मेजॉरिटी हिंदू स्टेट है ये। इनफैक्ट एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम ये एक हिंदू राज्य था। कुछ दिनों पहले डेमोक्रेसी बनने के बाद ये इट्स नो मोर हिंदू राज्य, पर है तो मेजॉरिटी हिंदू स्टेट है। जैसे हमारा भी एक मेजॉरिटी, मेरे ख्याल में हम दो देश हैं जो दुनिया में हिंदू मेजॉरिटी नेशंस हैं, और हमारे साथ इनका बहुत गहरा रिश्ता है। नेपाल, जैसे आप बार बार बताते रहते हो, इट सिट्स ऑन ओवर और हार्टलैंड, और हम उनके साथ दोती और बेटी का रिश्ता भी है हम बहुत लोगों के साथ। तो इस रिश्ता के बावजूद
फिर भी हम we don't get along. फिर भी एक देश like China, which is so far away, China, mainland China, नेपाल से 2000 से ज्यादा किलोमीटर दूर है। नेपाल is geographically close to China only through Tibet.
बस।
And we know and not only we, sir, the people of Nepal know what China has done in Tibet.
Correct.
How China has annexed Tibet.
And how they have treated people in Tibet.
बिल्कुल। और फिर भी we are not able to keep Nepal with us. It's a tragedy, sir. It's really a tragedy.
Yeah. And
जी
इसी सिलसिले में आई एम वेरी ग्लैड that you have written this book. And today I must tell all the viewers that Shokin Chauhan is going to share this book with us and tell us what this book is all about. And I would request all of us, those of you who are interested, please buy this book, right? Because it will give you a wealth of information of someone who's spent his life, with Nepal in one form or the other, either by commanding people from Nepal or being in Nepal or thinking of Nepal or going to Nepal bar and knowing everything. So you're going to get a first-hand knowledge of Nepal. And in these troubled times, where India is growing, and we keep saying कि भाई हमारा neighborhood को साथ कैसे लेकर जाना है. I am sure this book will give you insights. So, without wasting much time further, I would like request General Chauhan to take us through the paces of this book, because I know you have some fantastic illustrations in this book, which I'm sure you'll show it to us. So, all
आई डू
yours,
सर,
General Shokin Chauhan. Yeah.
थैंक यू सर। आई यू नो अब फौज में सर तरीका क्या है कि आप शुरू करें कहाँ से। when you're writing a book, the first thing was that I decided that I would start from the beginning, and the beginning is the beginning of our ties with Nepal, which actually, as you're saying, 1000 साल पहले की ये ties है. So I started with the history of this book, where I called it strategic history. I went through our languages. I took out the similarity in our language, the similarity in our culture, and brought in all the similarities that we have. The similarity of the temples that we have, as आपने बोला हम हिंदू देश हैं. So Nepal has, you would be surprised, the Pashupati Nath, which is one of the dhams of India, of Hinduism. It also has
Whoa.
Mukti Nath, which is again another very famous temple of Shiva. So जब हम इतने नेपाल के पास इतने इम्पोर्टेंट हमारे टेम्पल्स हैं, इट इज अ वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट पिलग्रिमेज साइट फॉर अस हिंदूज, फिर भी हमारी तरफ से व्हाई आर वी नॉट बीइंग क्लोजर इज वन थिंग दैट आई कीप टॉकिंग अबाउट. सो सबसे पहले आई टॉक ऑफ द हिस्ट्री. After that, sir, I talk of strategic geography, which I just want to show you a few illustrations, sir.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please.
सबसे पहले I would like people to just see this location of Nepal. Nepal sits on the Indo-Gangetic Plain. It is 650 kilometers wide, sorry, length, and only 200 kilometers in depth, in width. And in this small area are fitted the Tarai, the Middle Hills, and the higher Himalayas. इस छोटे से इलाके में, and it is between India and between Tibet, not China. China तो बहुत दूर है. But because China entered Tibet illegally in 48, 49, Nepal willy-nilly has become a neighbor of China. And China has taken advantage and is building up a closer relationship than a country like us, which we feel, and all Nepalese also feel, that we are one nation, we are one people, but two countries. We are one people, sir. कोई
Yeah.
difference नहीं है हमारे में. रोटी बेटी का रिश्ता है. We pray to the same God. We have the same festivals. अगर आप काठमांडू जाएंगे and you stay there for some time, you will realize that the people of Nepal and the people of India dress similarly. We have the same festivals. Our women, uh, you know, celebrate the same festivals, the same gods. We pray to the same gods. There's no difference. But difference is only in the political arena. And because of that, these differences in the political arena have allowed a country like China to enter our closest neighborhood. तो ये सबसे important बात है सर. उसके बाद में आई वुड लाइक टू once again show you, and these are all uh, we have I've covered this in the book, the geography of Nepal. अभी आप देख सकते हैं, टार आपके नॉर्थ में है, टिबेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रीजन इंडिया साउथ में है, एंड जहां आपका जो नेपाल का जो ईस्टर्न टिप है, ये मेची रिवर है सर, ये ईस्टर्न टिप पे, और मेची रिवर के पास ही is the Siliguri corridor, which is probably the most important area for us because this is the only land bridge which connects mainland India with northeastern India. And it's a very small area that you can see. Bangladesh is on the east and the south, and Nepal is on the north and the west. अगर आप सोचिए, ये जो लाल टिबेट का लिखा हुआ है, ये दिखा रहे हैं हमें, अगर ये उस एरिया से नीचे आ जाए तो हमारी तो पूरी सिक्योरिटी जेपर्डाइज हो जाती, our complete security is jeopardized. So for us, Nepal is so important to us, just like Bhutan is, Nepal is that important to us. And this will show you कि what I'm actually meaning. अभी आप देखते हैं, the Himalayas, the Tarai Plains, as I said, in this 200 kilometers of width, you have the highest mountains in the world, and you have the Tarai Plains, all in 200 kilometers. And in the middle of the Tarai Plains and the high Himalayas are the middle hills, where 90% of the population, where 50% of the population actually resides in the middle hills. About 48-49% of the population resides in the Tarai Plains, and the balance is in the high Himalayas, which is a very, very low populated area. And Nepal's width, eastern boundary जो है, it is on the river Mechi, and the western boundary is on the river Mahakali.
Okay. Yeah.
और ये जो काली का जो river है सर, this also has a problem today with Nepal and India saying that we don't agree to the borders of Kali. Cannot
Limpudara.
cannot two countries who have such a close relationship with each other not actually sit down and discuss this with each other? कि यार इसमें है क्या? We all know mountain streams go through their periodic changing of courses, and that is exactly what has happened. And in all international conventions, the boundary is taken from the center of the river. And since Kali River has changed its course, it's the 17th course, which I explain in very great detail in my book. That because of this difference of about 400 odd kilometers taking place, and because of this, today we have a major issue between ourselves. In reality, it is just the changing of the course of the river. अभी आप देखिए, which is again I thought very interesting, you know, photographs, and I've made these slides to show you Nepal's physiographical regions, the high Himalayas, the Mahabharat range. The middle hills are called the Mahabharat range. The slightly lower hills are called the Shivalik ranges. And south of the Shivalik ranges are the Tarais. So these two mountain ranges are between the Tarai and the Himalayas, east to west. The Shivalik range is between 300 to 600 feet, and the Mahabharat range goes up till 10,000 feet, which is, as I said, the largest part of the country, the Middle Hills. It's a very interesting feature, sir. कि when you study Nepal and you study, सबसे पहले when you are studying some country, आपने सबसे पहले इनका देखना है कि इनकी ज्योग्राफी क्या है, लोग रहते कहाँ हैं, किस तरीके के साथ लोग रहते हैं. And this is what is called strategic geography. And the Terai plains then flow into India. अभी आप देखिए, अगर चाइना हाई हिमालय से को क्रॉस करके अंदर आ जाती है, तो there is no boundary where we can actually prevent them from coming further. And our complete border, 1856 kilometers, lie at the mercy of the person coming in front because it is totally open. Why? Because it- Nepalese have been given almost full citizenship rights in India. Other than their voting, Nepalese are allowed to enter India at any time without a visa. They're allowed to own own land here. They're allowed to own property here. They are allowed to take jobs here. They can join the armed forces. So they have unlimited, you know, facilities for them in India because Nepal is such a small country. With the kind of thing is that they say sometimes one third of Nepal is actually in India. So this is what I was saying: 200 kilometers wide, 650 kilometers in length. That means from Mechi River to Kali River, it is 650 kilometers. And then, as you see, sir, on the west is Uttarakhand. Pithoragarh, Uttarakhand is on the west. In the south of Nepal is eastern UP and eastern Bihar. And in the east of Nepal, you can is the town of Siliguri and then Darjeeling in Sikkim. And उसके जो north में है is Tibet. So in every which way, Nepal, they say, is landlocked. It is not landlocked, sir. अगर आप उसको देखते हो, you would say it is India open. Which other country has this kind of access into our country? और इसको देखने के बाद 49% of the population are from the Terai region, which is similar to the eastern UP, eastern Bihar population. It is a very interesting situation when you study it. And of course, like I said, I talked of the Siliguri corridor, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers at the maximum, separated from Bhutan by Sikkim, 88 kilometers, separated from Bangladesh by 15 kilometers Siliguri corridor. India open for transit and access to the sea. This is so strategic about Nepal itself. So, what is Nepal like? It lies along the mountains of the central portion, slopes downward from the mighty, impenetrable Himalayan wall in the north to the Mechi River at the eastern border and the Mahakali at the western border. जब भी आप स्टडी करते हैं आपने ये तीन चीज जरूर देखनी, इनके माउंटेन्स कहाँ हैं, इनके प्लेन्स कहाँ हैं, इनका पॉपुलेशन कहाँ रहता है, इनके रिवर्स कहाँ हैं, इनके रिवर्स का फ्लो कहाँ से आता है. These are what you call the study, the strategic study of a country. And why I am concentrating on these are this is how the Shivalik ranges are there. Okay. So now let me now come back to us. That after covering the history and geography, I then cover the relationship with China. And in with the relationship with China, there's one thing that I must be very clear about, that Nepal and Tibet have been fighting wars and have been trading with each other for the last 3 centuries. From something like the 15th or 16th century, Nepal and Tibet have been fighting wars with each other. And every time when Nepal defeated the Tibetans, it is China from Beijing, Chinese emperor, who interceded on behalf of Nepal, on behalf of Tibet, and then defeated Nepal and forced Nepal to sign the Treaty of Thapathali in 1864, which forced Nepal to send a tribute to the Chinese emperor every 5 years. So while Nepal says that they were never colonized by the British, they were never colonized by the British, but there was a British resident in Kathmandu, and the Nepal king had to ask the British resident, about his defense, his foreign affairs, and his finance. These were controlled by the British resident living in Kathmandu. जहाँ इंडियन एम्बेसी का लोकेशन है काठमांडू में इन अ प्लेस कॉल्ड in Kathmandu, that is the place where the British resident used to stay in the good old days. Lenchor. That means that is where the troops of Britain and the British resident used to stay. Lenchor is actually means lines of tents. So that is the second issue that I cover. First, I talk about our people to people connection. Next, I talk of the strategic history and strategic geography. After that, I cover their history with China. And I, in detail, uh, mention this all the time how important China is in this whole feature is that despite all the issues that China has done, despite the fact that they took Tibet, despite the fact that they, uh, they took Tibet, it is despite all that. Let me show you the slide, which is very important, sir.
एक मिनट.
Ah, what happened? I'll show you. In 1949, in 1950, in 1946, in fact, Mao termed Tibet as the palm of a hand, with its five fingers as Ladakh, Sikkim, Nepal, Bhutan, and Nepal. He claimed that these were ancient Chinese territories that needed to be liberated. But Mao liberated Tibet by force in 1950. And after that, all these other territories were all worried. So the major insecurity of Nepal is that they can be taken over by the PLA or China at any time, because now that China has brought in so many forces into Tibet, all they have to do is move downwards into Nepal. And now that they're creating so many roads and they're creating so, changing geography in so many ways, and the mighty Himalayas are no longer an obstacle. This is a very real possibility. And I'm talking from a soldier's point of view, sir. Now, what does the buffer between India and Nepal mean? Nepal is a buffer between India and China. India has always regarded Tibet and not Nepal, sir. We have always regarded Tibet as the buffer
Tibet is
against
the
China.
buffer, yeah.
But suddenly that has changed to Nepal being the buffer. The annexation of Tibet by China in 1950, India had to reassess its strategic requirements. And as a result, Nepal became the buffer. So that allowed communist China to come closer to India and create a closer threat to us. So this resulted in what? Our security concerns of India vis-a-vis Nepal got accentuated. So not only are we scared that they can, do we feel that China can enter from Arunachal Pradesh, where we are holding them in the east, or they can enter from Ladakh. They can also enter from Nepal. They can also enter from Burma or Myanmar. All because they have now annexed Tibet. And as professional soldiers, the study of the ground is something that we first learn. आपको पता है सर, जहाँ स्टाफ कॉलेज जब करते हैं और हम सबसे पहले जो सीखते हैं द एप्रिसिएशन, उसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट, द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट फैक्टर इन एप्रिसिएशन इज द ग्राउंड एलिमेंट. आप और मैंने साथ ही करा है स्टाफ कॉलेज. हम जानते हैं कि ये जो ग्राउंड एलिमेंट है, ये स्टडी इज द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट स्टडी. And it is using that knowledge as an appreciation that I have looked at the territory of Nepal, looked at the territory of India, looked at the territory of Tibet, and have seen how difficult it is for India now to actually protect herself against any movement by the PLA. And PLA के लिए it is important. China is building strategic railroads. China is building roads. The movement of these troops can be a natural consequence. So this is the worrying issue. आप और मैं इतना डिस्कस करते हैं चाइना के बारे में कि ये है, but सबसे important is the threat that they actually have to us in our actual heartland. This is the threat. ये जो buffer है, they can walk in any time. And the closer that Nepal becomes politically to China, the easier it is for China to just walk in and say we are liberating it. At one point or the other, ये जो word liberation है, they can just choose a section of the government saying कि please come and help us out, we can't rule our own country or we don't have the money. Which is right, Nepal has no money. It has no money, it has no jobs for its people. In the garb of giving jobs to people, in the garb of creating assets and infrastructure, China can just walk in. This is the difficulty, sir, that I have been talking about, and I talk about throughout my book how difficult it is and why it is important for us to sort out the differences that we have between us and Nepal, so that we don't allow this communist element in Nepal to go closer to the communist China. Let me give you an idea. The Maoist angle. When I was in Nepal, the the PLA was fighting the King's Army, the Royal Nepalese Army, and they used to call themselves the PLA, the People's Liberation Army of Maoist Nepal. But the Chinese during that time never said that this was the PLA. They always referred to them as anti-government forces. Once Prachanda became the prime minister, he is the person who started moving closer to China. And today, there are the communist government in Nepal, and they've been there now almost for 10 years. In one garb or the other, in one way or the other, they have they have come there. Institutional and diplomatic linkages between India and Nepal have endured because of very strong historical, geographical, political, and social linkage, which has evolved after so many centuries. But these historical linkages are a target of the Maoists in Nepal. And these linkages are resisting the complete taking over of Nepal by the Maoists. It is time we woke up. I then talk of the ideological barrier. Nepal is a mirror image of India. When you go there, sir, like I said, you find in Kathmandu or in eastern Nepal or in western Nepal, people are the same as the people living on the other side of the border. It is more than a geographical and ideological barrier between India and China. And this barrier is being weakened by the Nepalese Maoists through an influx of Chinese ideology and technology. और जितना हम डिले करते हैं in sorting out these outstanding problems, we are creating more angst in the people of Nepal, who are anyway so insecure about China. This slide is very interesting, sir. It shows the track work from Lhasa to Shigatse. Lhasa is the capital of the Tibet administrative region. Shigatse is the area from where, as you see, it is just on top of Nepal, 280 kilometers. A feasibility study of track work from Shigatse to Nalayam, which is inside Nepal. It's on the border of Nepal. And Nalayam is just 120 kilometers from Kathmandu. So these are the important issues that I have covered in my book, that I keep covering, and I keep talking about these issues so that people will understand. The Chinese influx, and I have dedicated The largest chapter in my book is the Nepal China relationship and what it means for India. It's just too close for comfort. The 253-kilometer long Lhasa Shigatse railway will be ready by October this year. New Delhi, we are watching, but watch se kya hoga? I mean, what is watching?
ये कुछ तो
We
करना
have to
पड़ेगा ना.
create. Yeah, हम watch ही करते रहते हैं. There's nothing beyond that. The day they enter, the railway enters Kathmandu, it would provide alternative to the complete dependence on India as a logistics corridor for critical supplies like petroleum goods will be created by China. अबे आप देखिए how critical it is. This map shows you where Nepal is located: Bhutan, Sikkim, Arunachal, Uttarakhand, Himachal, J&K. It is right on our head. Nepal is India open. I always have said that the economic vulnerability and the insularity of Nepal is being exploited by the Maoists with the support from China. Nepal has always had a problem with giving jobs to her people. The Indian Army was a place where a really good soldier could be brought and recruited into the Indian Army. And his family automatically became a family of India. By not giving them privileges which go beyond the Agni scheme, we have created for ourselves our own obstacle. And we have to understand that because this country has no economic capabilities, they have no industry, they have no jobs for their people. Where are the people going to go? They come to, if they don't come to India, they'll go to China. And then that will create a problem. Nepal has economic vulnerability. The distance from the sea has resulted in a dependence on others. And it was always very insular and inward bent of mind. And it becomes when you are insular and you inward bent, you become vulnerable to other people's thoughts. So it has not been able to open up to the notion of modernization, which hampers development processes. And that is how it has been taken advantage of by China. Now, let me now try and conclude this. Nepal, as I said, was a buffer state between India and China. It was vital for the security of India. The relationship is still governed by the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1950, which we are still fighting over. We signed it in 1950. We have never felt the need to re-sign it again, but everyone in Kathmandu, especially the intelligentsia, the media, always talk that this treaty has given, greater influence to India. It was a treaty of peace and friendship. But now with increased Chinese influence, this is leading to increased anti-India influences. The infrastructure development by China is reducing the dependency on India. Why did we give an opportunity to China to build infrastructure in Nepal? We should have built it ourselves. Constantly saying we are a poor country, we can't do this, has resulted in other people taking advantage. Increased Maoist influence in the government because their their political parties are communists. Their ruling political parties are communist. That has given them a great deal of influence. And their linkages with the Maoists in India is a security challenge for us and will always be. Increased ISI footprints, it's a security threat, besides, of course, the fact that there is a problem with China. India's dilemma. What is India's dilemma? We can't ignore the internal dynamics of Nepal. We have to convince people, and the people and the intelligentsia and the leaders of Nepal, that they have to be a part of our security infrastructure. We can't directly interfere. It's a challenging situation for Indian diplomacy, but our diplomats are equal to this and more. Increase diplomatic engagement. We have to win back this confidence. We have no option, sir. हम ये नहीं कर सकते कि वी कैन इग्नोर यू, कभी ना कभी ये चाइना चली जाएगी। चाइना नहीं जाएगी, कभी नहीं जाएगी। एक बार अंदर आ गई, फिर वो जाने की नहीं सोचेगी सर। दैट आई कैन बी एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर अबाउट। Increasing footprints in the form of infrastructure development, trade, investments. The Indian Army, we had such a huge force multiplier. 125,000 soldiers draw their pension directly from the government of India. अगर इनको आप 6 के फैक्टर से मल्टीप्लाई करें, 10 से 15 लाख लोग इन अ कंट्री ऑफ 23 मिलियन depend on the government of India for their pension, for our medical teams, for all their support. और हम ये सपोर्ट के साथ 125,000 लोगों के साथ भी हम कुछ नहीं कर सके। दैट इज क्रिमिनल ऑन आवर साइड सर। तो ये है सर, दिस इज व्हाट आई फेल्ट आई मस्ट से। My book covers this in detail. I cover the vulnerabilities of India, especially the vulnerabilities of our neighborhood, where countries like Sri Lanka, where countries like Maldives, where countries like Nepal, Bhutan are all being subjected to a great deal of economic invasion by China. And unfortunately, we are not able to understand this economic invasion. And because we're not able to understand, we will lose this the longer war. Because as we don't encourage these countries to come to us, or we create enemies from within, these countries we will lose to China. और इस बार चाइना वापस नहीं जाएगी. That I am absolutely certain. She is in a very clear mood of expansion. She's not going to go backwards.
Yeah.
So this is my book, sir. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak about it. I'm so happy that this was one thing in my mind from all the time. I was always, Nepal used to be, you've heard me in so many places. I would always talk of Nepal. कि यार हम नेपाल को क्यों नहीं देख रहे? It has been a love affair with Nepal, love affair with the country, love affair with the people. And I feel that, and I always tell the Nepalese also that we are one people. We can be two nations, two different sovereign nations, but we are one people. And as one people, we must get along with each other.
Yeah, I think you said it, and I must tell everyone, मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ कि कल ही हमने सिलीगुड़ी कॉरिडोर के बारे में बात किया था विद जनरल केजे से, और उन्होंने अच्छी तरीके से ये सिलीगुड़ी कॉरिडोर और नेपाल के बारे में सब कुछ बात किया। और नेपाल के बारे में ही बात नहीं किया उन्होंने, ये सिक्किम, दार्जिलिंग और दुआर्स और कूच बिहार और मालदा, इस इलाके में हमारे क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं उन्होंने अच्छी तरीके से बताया. He said it very clearly. So I would like everyone to first see that, also along with this. And I think what General Chauhan has told us today about what is in his book is something fantastic. And I again request all of you, please pick up this book. I'm sure it's available in Amazon, right?
It is.
And it is available in Amazon for those of you who want to read about Nepal. Let me put it in his words with a different perspective. His words. We all talk कि भाई इंडिया एक पावर बन रहा है, ग्लोबल पावर बन रहा है, एशियन पावर बन रहा है, हम चाइना से टक्कर लेंगे. मैं रोज बात करता रहता हूँ कि चाइना हमारे साथ कुछ नहीं कर सकती, हमारे फौज को हरा नहीं सकती, वगैरह 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 वगैरह। एंड वी आर ग्रोइंग। हमारा जीडीपी आज 5 ट्रिलियन है। आजकल नेता सारे बोलते हैं बीजेपी के कि हम विकसित भारत करेंगे, ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे। बट our security of India does not lie in India. It lies in these small countries which are around us. एंड इसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट कंट्री है नेपाल। और नेपाल जितना इम्पोर्टेंट है और कोई देश नहीं है। और मैं भी अपना एक you have to see this in the context of I'll just show a small map and I'll put it across. Right, sorry. Okay, ये मैप देखिए। अगर आप देखेंगे इस मैप को, अगर चाइना को दूर रखना है तो नेपाल एंड भूटान आर टू इम्पोर्टेंट प्लेसेस। क्योंकि आप उत्तराखंड में या नेफा में या अरुणाचल प्रदेश में या सिक्किम में हमारा फौज तैनात है, हम उसको बाहर खदेड़ सकते हैं, पर यहाँ फौज नहीं है। ओके, तो नेपाल और भूटान जो है वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस, विच ही हैज ब्रॉट आउट। नेपाल और भूटान इफ यू कंपेयर, तुलना करो, तो भूटान में द चाइनीज कैन कम आइदर थ्रू चुम्बी वैली और ऑन द बॉर्डर विद अरुणाचल। वो बीच में से नहीं आ सकते। देयर नो डायरेक्ट कनेक्टिविटी फॉर चाइना टू कम थ्रू भूटान एंड कम टू आवर यू नो प्लेन्स, द प्लेन्स और द ब्रह्मपुत्र वैली पहुंच नहीं सकते वो। They have to come either, there are only two ways, the third way is not there. ऊपर भूटान अगर आप देखेंगे तो ईस्ट वेस्ट कनेक्टिविटी पुअर है। Okay, so that is why China has not invested into Bhutan so much as in Nepal. और नेपाल में देखिए उनके जो नदियां आती हैं, पानी आता है, कोसी रिवर वगैरह, ये आफ्टर ऑल जो वाटरवेज आर द चैनल्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन ऑल्सो, उसके साथ साथ ही तो रोड बनते।
All Nepal's, yeah, all Nepal's rivers flow into India. All 100%.
सब गंजटिक प्लेन में आते हैं और उसके साथ साथ ही रोड चलते हैं। और साथ साथ तो फ्रॉम द हिमालयाज टू नेपाल कनेक्टिविटी ज्यादा है भूटान के बनस्पत। और ये कनेक्टिविटी को इस्तेमाल कर रहा है चाइना ऑलरेडी, क्योंकि जितने रोड चाइना में बन रहे हैं, नेपाल में बन रहे हैं, इट्स ऑल बीइंग मेड बाय चाइना। हम नहीं बना रहे, दे आर मेकिंग। सो ऑलरेडी maybe in the next 2 to 3 years you will find Chinese in the Terai region and you have to start accepting it. That is the danger which he is trying to highlight very 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 unequivocally rather, not equivocally, unequivocally. So I think this is very important. The second thing which has come out after this presentation and about in his book is India's time is running out, and it is running out at very fast pace. And I don't, like I said, we might have another 2 to 3 years before we have to start accepting Chinese presence in Terai. That is very dangerous. If Chinese presence in Terai we have to start accepting in the next 2 to 3 years, the day is not far when the PLA is available there, right? And this is something we have to be very alive to. That is why time is running out. And the third, we have lost Nepal almost politically already with so many communist movements there. Why they have gone communist is a question we have to answer, but okay, that is वो बन गए, अभी कुछ कर नहीं सकते हो। फिर जो आपका जो लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस है, those are the Nepalese people with whom you had this rishta through the army, right? Like he said, so many people, 1,25,000 people are getting pension. उनका रोजी रोटी हमारे से चलता है, उसको कम multiplied by 4 to 5 or even a factor of 6, right? The family, close family, right? Then you're looking at about 10 to 12 lakhs of Nepalese spread all over middle Nepal, because Gorkhas come largely from middle Nepal.
And they are the richest group, sir, because उनको pension मिलता है. They're
more,
best
most,
educated, richest. They are
and the
the
most
and
well off.
everywhere. Yes, and they are the policy shapers.
Of right, and they
Yeah,
control the villages. They
absolutely.
control, right. The people can be Maoists, but the sentiment in the villages, everything is Indian Army, and we are losing it through this Agni scheme. Just think why time is running out. Already we have reports of Nepalese going and joining either Ukraine or Russia. The day is not far when they will, if you, they don't have a way to come this side, they will join PLA. And if in another 10 years, if PLA can start giving pension even to 10,000 people, I'm not talking too much, just 10,000 in 10 years, then you have a hostile Nepal on your borders. I'm not talking of friendly Nepal anymore, hostile Nepal. I do hope this government, which is going to come in, understands this. And we are going to talk of it futuristic. It is very nice to say future of Pakistan, JNK, बांग्लादेश, म्यांमार, ये तो हमारा सर पे है, हमारा हार्टलैंड है, गांजेटिक प्लेन, गंगा माँ के सर पे बैठी है ये देश, और ये धीरे धीरे टाइम इज रनिंग आउट. So this is very important, and it is to the credit of all of you who are listening to this, you know, podcast today, that you have a lot of questions, right, to answer, ask, and I will now request uh, General Chauhan to take on these questions because I find the questions are quite relevant. We have time, and the first question here is this: Dear Sir, as we have such a good military to military relationship with Nepal, as our chiefs are honorary generals in each other's force, how can military bridge the gap? He has answered it, but I think you need to reinforce this whole story.
Yes, thank you for this question, Port Putra. We are very close to the military to military relationship, or closer. And with the, if I wonder if you're aware, because I didn't cover it in my talk, but I've covered it in my book in very great detail, that it is the Indian Army that actually reorganized the Nepalese army.
You'll have to come a
After
little
the
closer. Your voice is breaking. Yeah, yeah. Please go
after
ahead.
after the time when Mao said that Nepal was one of the fingers of one of the five fingers, the king of Nepal, King Mahendra, came to India. He got worried. He came to India and he said, "Please reorganize my army." So, from a part-time army, the Royal Nepalese Army was actually reorganized by the Indian Army. And
Yeah,
this Indian Army actually had an Indian military training team, the same kind of team that we have in Bhutan today, we
Bhutan.
had in Nepal. But after we lost the 1962 war with China, Nepal asked the Indian Army team to leave Nepal. But we continue to have a very, very close relationship with them. We have given them arms, we have given them equipment, we continue to give them training, and we are culturally also very close to them. I've covered this in very great detail. The Nepalese officers want to come to India to train with us. So this is an important issue that Indian Army is trying its best, but eventually policy is made by the government of India, not by the Indian Army. And external affairs is led by the Foreign Ministry of India, not by the Indian Army.
yeah.
And
I
I
think
remain firm that this book, I hope people read this. I hope people
they
realize
will.
how vulnerable we are and how important it is for us to continue to engage Nepal and to continue to keep Nepal as our friend and not allow China to come inside.
Okay, right. Uh, General Sir, why we have not? Why not help? It's not. It's a typo mistake. Why not help Nepal's economy by setting up textile and ceramic, etc., and import from there, which would help better our relationship with Nepal? Your view on it.
Raghunandan Saab, I can't agree with you more. We must do everything for Nepal to prevent China from coming in. We must get their markets. Nepal must sell to India. That is the main thing. We must be the closest business buddies. They cannot be depending upon exports to China. It should be to India. They are India open. So I agree with you. In every which way, India should help Nepal by setting up its economy, setting up its medical system, setting up its roads, infrastructure, setting up its army. Everything should be done by India. It is very, very important.
Okay. Sorry to say this, sir, but why do the Nepalese bring up some issues from time to time? Seems there's a lobby there trying to sabotage and strain relationship and fuel anti-India sentiments.
There is no doubt that the lobby is a communist lobby. There is no doubt about it. बिल्कुल भी कोई शक नहीं. But the issue is that when you say Nepalese, which Nepalese are you talking about? आप नेपाल में जाइए. You enter Nepal from the Mechi River from Siliguri. You will find only people who are pro-India there. All the people will be working in India, connected to India. A lot of our soldiers come from eastern Nepal. All soldiers who are doing well. आप उनसे बात कीजिए, they will say we are the closest. You go to enter Nepal from the Kali River, you will find the same thing. All our soldiers are settled there. Their families are settled there. They are doing business there. We are the closest. But people, there are a certain segment of people living in Kathmandu whom unfortunately have the loudest voice and they control the media of Nepal. And we have allowed that small minority of people living in Kathmandu who control the media to decide the India Nepalese relationship. We have to look beyond Kathmandu. We have to look at Eastern Nepal, we have to look at Western Nepal, we have to look at people all over and not just at the small minority of people living in Kathmandu. That's a very important thing. So please don't feel it is the Nepalese. It's just a very small segment of people who live in Kathmandu, who control the media, who bring up some new issues now and then. Otherwise, 99% of the people of Nepal are with India.
Yeah. Okay. So we have an open border with Nepal. Boys serve in our army, yet the Chinese were able to consolidate their presence here and are now building a road to Terai. Sorry, we are not a great power yet. Yeah, I agree with you. We are not a great power. That's why I said if you
We're
want to
not a
be a
great power.
great power,
You have to do
we
many, many more things.
many more things. Yeah. Okay. He says, shouldn't Nepal have been made part of India? It could have been easier than winning over POJK.
No. If Nepal has been an independent country, it should remain an independent country. It must always be an independent country. It is in our relationship and our this thing that we should make Nepal a close friend. There's no question of Nepal being a part of it.
Yeah. Uh, what is the impact of Agniveer scheme on India-Nepal relationship? What can be the future course of action for India? If no solution comes out, what will be the future of Gorkha battalions and the morale of serving soldiers?
Agniveer scheme must be revamped. We must have special privileges for our Nepali brothers. We must allow them to be recruited and serve their full color service for 15 years. Uh, the good future of the Gurkha battalion is not a problem because India has our own large population of Nepali people who are now contributing in many ways to the Gurkha battalion. So that's not a problem. The morale of serving soldiers is not a problem. It is just that we need this segment of the population of Nepal to come and work in India so that they are with us as our brothers and they do not go and serve in an inimical country which will create a problem for us in the future.
Yeah. This is an interesting question. So, what is the strategic ambition of Nepalese people and leadership?
I think Nepalese people want to live a life of, you know, like how we think. They want to be considered as people of an important nation state. They have their own thought processes. They are extremely sensible people, very loyal, very proud, very educated in some ways, and we must treat them as a separate nation and give them all the respect and love that we would give a separate nation. We should not treat
Okay,
them as people belonging to a small little country.
right. Can you clarify if Nepal was always an independent kingdom? For some radical Nepalese online trying to mock us as colonial slaves, whilst bragging that neither Mughals nor British colonized it.
It is true that they were not colonized by the British. In 1814 to 1816, during the time when they had the Anglo-British Wars, Anglo-Gurkha Wars, the Nepalese army was defeated very badly, and the Nepalese lost a lot of territory. They lost their entire Terai region. They lost Sikkim. They lost Darjeeling. They, in the western side, they had come right up till Kangra. They lost all that, and they were now confined between the Mechi River and the Kali River. After that, the British put a British resident there, and though he did not rule Nepal, but the Nepalese king had to take his permission for a lot of things. The reason for Britain doing that was that the British also wanted a buffer between them and Tibet. They didn't want to, be a border with Tibet, and that's the reason why they did not walk into Nepal, which they could have. But the Nepalese army served the British crown. They supported them in the 1857 First War of Independence, which I've covered in my book. They supported them in the First World War. They supported them in the Second World War. So there was no real difference. It is wrong for people to mock us as colonial slaves. Uh, these are issues of geography. Why certain nations don't do certain things is an issue of geography. It is not an issue of strength. So you should try and explain to these people that don't mock us. In many ways, you also paid obeisance to the British crown, and now you are paying obeisance to the communist China.
Chinese throne. Yeah,
Yes, while India is growing as an economic nation, these people there are, telling the government that you have no money. So eventually, mocking is not the right word, but the reason why they were not colonized, I have explained.
yeah. Why are we so keen to give such unlimited access to Nepalese people in India when it is observed that the general populace do not like India and Indians?
I feel differently. Nepal has an extremely strategic location in India, in India's heartland. So it is important for us to keep Nepal close to us. We cannot afford Nepalese people being against India. We cannot afford it strategically, we cannot afford it economically. We cannot allow Nepal to be closer to communist China. So
Right.
it is important that we give them all the help. It is important for them to understand the kind of help they've been given by India and why it is essential that they should be a part of the Indian security ecosystem rather than doing something with China. In the long run, China will enslave them, which India has never done.
Okay, a major factor is the Maoist influence which has gained political space in Nepal. By logic, this is an extension of Chinese political ideology. And
No,
he says this. He
not
says,
really. No.
I also second that Nepal is independent if only and if they challenge communism. Otherwise, they are
Yeah.
not.
So, when you read history, you discover many new things. The Nepal Congress Party was made actually in India in 1946, 45, 46. It was the Indian Congress Party's influence that made the Nepal Congress Party. And it is the Nepal Congress Party that fought against the king's absolute rule during that time because there was a lot of problems with the king. He was not ruling well, and there was a lot of issues in his governance. It is also that the Nepal Communist Party, which was created in 1950, came up through its relations with the Indian Communist Party in India. So it did not have a relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. This Chinese communism closeness has come after the second Jan Andolan when they had a communist party ruling them post the Jan Andolan, post 2007-8. Of course, Prachanda, Oli, and all these people realize that it is only India who can help them, but they do this to actually try and push us. But what is happening is it is giving China space in Nepal, which we don't want. It is important that we regain that space from China and that we regain our influence, political influence in Nepal, so that we don't allow Nepal to belong to the security system of another country which is inimical to us. I am a soldier, I am not a politician. I can only talk in terms of security of my nation, and I feel that the security of India depends a lot on Nepal being a part of the Indian security system.
Yeah. Why are Gorkhas joining the British and Russian armies instead of the Indian Agnipath scheme? Do they prefer long term service and better pay due to their generational profession of fighting?
Absolutely. They prefer long term service, they prefer pensionable job. And the reason they're not coming for Agnipath is because we had a trilateral agreement. The British, India, and the Nepalese government in 48, 47, 48 had a trilateral agreement. Of course, that agreement said that we would treat the Nepalese soldiers similar to the Indian soldiers. So if Indian soldiers have all Indian soldiers have the Agnipath scheme, we said Nepalese will also have the same thing. But Nepal government feels that they should have been consulted, uh, though technically we didn't need to consult them, but we could have spoken to them and we could have convinced them about this Agnipath scheme. We are hoping, as a RM or the Raksha Mantri said, that they are willing to relook at the Agnipath scheme. And we're hoping that by this relook, we will be able to get Nepal to join us again. As of now, the government of Nepal has not allowed Nepalese in the Indian army.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. It is voices are rising in Nepal to re-establish the monarchy and make Hindu and Nepal a Hindu Rashtra. Is this beneficial for India or is it a more fragile system?
The choices of a nation are dependent on its people. We have had a problem with Nepal even when it was under the monarchy. After we lost the 1962 war with them, it was King Mahendra, later King Birendra, that asked the Indian military training team to move out from Nepal. So it is not as if the monarchy also favored India. So Nepal has played this game of equidistance, and this game is continuing to be played by the communists of Nepal who are ruling Nepal today. Uh, what is beneficial for us is that the Nepalese join us, and Nepal is a part of the Indian economic, Indian security ecosystem, and that we are able to convince Nepal that it should not sell out to communist China. Like I said, I'm a soldier. I have no issues here. I have written this book as a soldier would write, and this is the issue that I can only speak about it. As a soldier, we must have Nepal to be a part of our security system.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have no doubt about it. There is no way you can lose Nepal at all, right? Uh, okay, all your YTube podcasts should be made uh, mandatory part of educational courses across all courses to engage
I
young
agree with
minds.
you.
Though I completely agree with you, Arunachal, I would like you to put this across to all your friends and ask more people to join in and watch. Because unless we know about many things which are without any political bias, without any masala, no masala, with old people like us who have only one thing to give back. We only have our knowledge to give back to all of us, all people in India, and that is why I'm running this whole thing. It's giving back to society. Okay, the next question is: do you have plans to have do some discussions about Russia-Ukraine war in detail as well? Yeah, we'll do it. Whatever Russia is doing has just started. इसका आकार जो है ना वो अगले 10-15 दिन में पता चलेगा कि ये कर क्या रहे हैं. Otherwise, it's the way I look at it, and I don't think many people will disagree. This is a desultory war where no one is going to win. Everyone is a loser, including USA, which started. It has also started losing. And even if China, if you think China is going to win, they are going to lose. Every actor in this war who's put his foot in it is going to lose. Right? And this is what I wrote when it started, and I hold my whole story so far. So let us see how it goes. There's no hurry. Unless, Shokin, you have any other view about this Ukraine war? Who's going to win or lose?
So the day it started, I said everyone the loser like you.
Lose. Yeah.
Russia will lose because it can't win. Ukraine will lose because it's losing territory. And eventually, NATO is losing because cannot defeat Russia. And Russia can't afford to lose its population, which it is losing. They've lost a great lot of friends because they are also Slav people. And Ukraine was actually very close to them culturally.
Yeah.
So it's. I agree with the Jan Shankar. Everyone's a loser. It's a
Everyone
war
will
that
lose.
shouldn't have started, and it's a war that will not end well for him.
Yeah. Okay. This thing, sir, should we create a pro-India organization and political party to keep China away from Nepal, as well as instruction? If we fail, should use military option like Russia did with Ukraine.
Uh, it's a difficult question as a soldier to answer this. Uh, we must have influence with the political setup in Nepal. There is no doubt about it. We must have people speaking for India. There's no doubt about it. I am not in favor of any military options, so that part I don't agree upon. But we can convince Nepal. They are our brothers in many ways. That it must be a part of us.
Yeah, and I would like to tell there's an interesting question for two reasons. One reason, when the Ukraine war started, I still remember. Maybe next time when we discuss Nepal or Ukraine war, I'll get that equivalence. There is an equivalence between the West, NATO, on the Europe, Ukraine, and Russia, and between China, Nepal, and India. With Nepal in the center, like Ukraine is in the center between the Western countries and Russia, and how the things are playing out, right? And you can do the topsy turvy between of the buffer of Nepal between us. We have an equivalence, so but that equivalence should teach us a lot. What I said, if you enter Nepal, you'll lose. If China enters Nepal, it will lose. I'm making it unequivocal. And in any case, if either of us enter Nepal militarily, Nepal will lose. So again, this is a whole story where whoever enters this place will lose, right? Because at the end of the day, one should realize war is not a military matter. War is a matter not even politically. War is major issue of people, and these are very populated places, highly populated places. The South Asian region is one of the highest density of population in the world, the Indian subcontinent, and you can't sustain such a huge population from a sparsely populated place like Tibet. It's not easy for China, and that is why China doesn't come into this area. It's nice for Mao to say five fingers and all that nonsense, but at the end of the day, it is the people who matter, and people will eventually not, will eventually turn against China. People, okay, and that's why China can't enter. We can't enter because of many other reasons. So this is, I thought, my view. You have any other views, or you can add on to it, or whatever, Shokin, over to you.
No, sir, I am absolutely clear in what I said that there is no military option for us,
Yeah.
but we must keep Nepal with us in our ego, our security system.
Yeah, I think that's it. We've generally I've taken questions from everyone, at least one question from everyone who's asked questions. I thought we had some very good questions, and that indicates the quality of your presentation and your book. I'm sure these people, some will think. And we've had one guy who's speaking from China, and it's also someone who's come from all the way from South Africa to take listen on to you. Thanks a lot for your wonderful presentation of your book, and I do hope it becomes a bestseller because you're talking some basic sense, right?
Thank
Your
you.
last
Thank
words,
you very much.
and then we'll say Jai Hind. Right, your last words for a minute, and then we'll close the show.
I spent a lifetime studying Nepal, and I have put my lifetime's thoughts into this. It's a good book. It's an honest book. I've written it with an idea that right thinking people can understand easily. I've not written it as an academic, I've written it as a soldier. I talk on certain issues, uh, not just my thoughts, but what is actually happening. How we can get over the baggage of the past, and how can we deal with our vulnerabilities. So, thank you once again, Jen Shankar, to call me. Very kind of you. Thank you for all of you listening to me. Um, I hope you will read the book, and I hope you'll find it educationally interesting. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, General Shokin Chauhan, and thanks a lot, viewers. Good evening and Jai Hind. Tomorrow we're going to
Jai Hind,
talk
sir.
of a little masala, and that's called reclaiming POK. But before I close, I know tomorrow a lot of you will listen to that podcast. But go back. Is keeping Nepal on your side more important than reclaiming POK? That's a question you people have to sleep over. And for me, the answer is very clear, right? Nepal is more important. With this, Jai Hind to all of you and good evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.